I'm Melanie Johnson along with my co-host Jen Foster. We are both 13-time best-selling authors. We've published over 2,500 books and made all of our authors #1 bestsellers. We own Elite Online Publishing. If you want to become a best-selling author, look us up at eliteonlinepublishing.com. Now, welcome to the podcast that shares secrets from top industry experts that show you how to get lasting success and results. This is the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hi, welcome. This is Melanie Johnson. So glad to have you visiting with us again today. We have another super great show and the best business partner in the world, Jen Foster, is here with me.
Hey everyone, how's everyone going today?
All right, well, if you wanted to know how to get your sales up 70% and your profits up 500%, then you need to listen to this podcast. But first, remember to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and we love to hear comments from you, and we answer our comments. So make sure you talk to us and send the podcast on. Share it to other people that you think that they can learn from it. So if they want to get their sales up 70% and increase their profits 500%, I know Jen and I want to do that. So we are going to be listening and taking notes while we're interviewing Todd Palmer, and he is from like my hometown. He's living in Northville, Michigan. So that's where my family's from. So I'm really happy to have him here today. Hey Todd, how you doing?
Ladies, thank you so much for having me today. It's nice to run into other people from the Michigan area who've gone on to great success and are out spreading the good world of entrepreneurship and how to grow businesses.
Awesome. Well, Todd, explain a little bit how you got into coaching and how you became helping people get this increase in their businesses.
Well, so I'm a retired CEO, and I was lucky enough to retire relatively young because I hired a coach. And I hired a coach because I realized that in order for the business to grow, I needed to grow and change as a leader. I was about 10 years into my entrepreneurial journey, and I had some good years and some bad years, but by and large, it was going okay. And come to 2006, I got the company $600,000 into debt. I was a single dad. My son and I are living in our house, and I realized that we're about 2 months away from losing our house. I suffered from massive imposter syndrome. I couldn't get out of bed. My itty bitty negative committee in my head that was meeting was telling me how much I suck and how I wasn't doing a good job and I was making all these mistakes and it was all my fault. And, the business used to be good, which means I used to be good, but now the business is doing poorly. That means I'm not a good person. All these different things were going on. And for the first time in my life, I reached out for help and I hired a coach, and he taught me some quick financial literacy because I was making a lot of financial mistakes. He taught me how to analyze and look at the human capital that was on my team for my recruiting business. And I made the difficult decision in September of 2006. I walked in one day and fired my entire company, and I started over with the help of my coach. And we quickly made some pivots, some changes. We took a look at margin over revenue. We took a look at how to get the right people on the team. Jim Collins 101, right people, right seat on my bus. Changed my hiring process. I used to hire only experienced recruiters, only HR professionals. Well, we came up with a process on how to hire for DNA, not for resume. I started bringing in talented people from restaurant, from retail, from other areas, and teaching them to be great recruiters because I was hiring them to fit the core values of the organization. Long story short, we turned the business around. We paid off all that debt, thankfully. And we are kind of the cherry on top is we made the Inc. 5000 as one of the fastest growing companies in America, an amazing 6 times. So based upon that story, I found that my passion was really to work with other entrepreneurs, to teach them some of the things that I knew so they could do their hero's journey, so I could guide them along their processes. Because as I found out in my experience was I couldn't fix my business until I fixed me. I had to work inside out in order to make the complex simple, because the complex was in my head. I was making a lot of false statements, false stories I was telling myself. And now I help entrepreneurs, like you talked about in the intro. I've got one client, his revenue is up 70%. His profits are up 500%. He's actually working less and loving the business more because we got him unstuck, because he's doing the hard work and the hard lifting to get that business where it needed to go. And now, I don't know where he's going to end up. Maybe he'll end up on the Inc. 5000 someday too.
So that's a great story. And one of the last things that I picked up on is how to get unstuck. So do you think the business owner has to start with themselves personally getting unstuck before they can unstick the business? And how do you go about doing that?
Well, I created a 4-step process that I had to go through, and it really does come down to, it's inside out leadership. At least that's how I do it. A lot of coaches and a lot of people who've written books will talk about, the 4 pieces of business are cash, strategy, execution, and staff. But there's people who make decisions about all of those. And typically, in my case, it was the CEO, entrepreneur, leader. And if I was not thinking clearly and I was maybe making decisions for the wrong reasons or not knowing the right way to make a decision, then the result would be based upon my choices and my actions. So I work with my entrepreneurs so that they can understand that, first of all, the first step in the process is identify what's not working for you. So for me, being in debt wasn't working for me. Paying $600,000 and losing my house and freaking my kid out was not working for me. The second thing I created an intention of what I did want. And my intention was, I want to be out of debt. Pretty simple. That's my intention. But I didn't have the expectation of how I would do it. So that freed up my creativity of like, okay, this isn't working for me being in debt. My intention is to be out of debt. How can I start working on that? And I started trying a bunch of different things. We would cold call different companies and have different conversations and start offering different things to find out what the marketplace wanted. I decided to give up my pride and ego and not tell the marketplace what it needed. Let them tell me what I need. And with the new team I had, we would just try a bunch of different ways to message and market. And we started hearing a lot of the same things over and over again. Hey, if I could hire a person who looked like this, we used to call them unicorn hires because these people were impossible to find. But if we could find a stable of unicorns and then market those unicorns back to the marketplace, we could do a couple of things. We could charge more for what we did. We could get paid faster, getting us out of debt. And we could increase the margins because these were unicorns. They're worth more than just your average horse. That methodology quickly hockey stick the business. And that's how we were able to get out of debt and make that Inc. 5000 6 times.
I love that. Well, and you started with your mindset, which I think is really important. Like you said, you had to think about your ego. You had to think about your intention. You had to think about, what isn't working, what isn't. So all that mindset happened before you started taking the next step, which was the implementation, right, of all those things you were talking about.
Right.
So
I got that. Yeah, I got that mindset stuff from my coach. He's like, he goes, you have stinking thinking. You have a doom loop in your head. Change that. If you don't, you used to call it change the tape. Again, this is mid 90s when people still listen to tapes and CDs. He's like, you got to change that tape in your head. If you don't change that tape in your head, you're not going to get where you want to go because you are the leader. And he was a college athlete and he was a golfer. And he would always talk about, business was like golf. It's one shot at a time. You can't worry about how you're going to putt from the tee box. He goes, just put your head down and keep doing a lot of the right things. And he taught me the right things to do. And put the right KPIs in place, the right metrics in place. And you do those enough times, you create that flywheel effect and those good things will come out. But if you worry about, what your final score is going to be before you even tee off, you're never going to get there. And that was where my thinking was until he helped me get unstuck.
Wow. So of the metrics, walk us through what do you think you get through the mindset part and now we're getting into the systems part. So walk us through, are you taking a business? I think you got your head in the game now, you're ready to go. What's the next level that that you tear apart and look at for the company?
So where I go next is I ask the owners, and you're going to think this is the simplest question in the world, but what do you want? And why do you want it? And, I want to be rich. Great. Why? And they sit there for a minute. They're not really sure why. They just were told they have to be rich, or they just told. Ultimately, I have to get them to anchor into some core beliefs and some core values internally within the leader. Then those core values are then shared with the team, and then everybody understands and they contribute to what the core values are because that's what we make decisions on. We make decisions on our core values based on who stays on the team and who leaves the team, what clients we want and what clients we don't want, who are we and who aren't we to the marketplace. I mean, everything from marketing, you guys know this probably better than anybody, is, my marketing does two things. It either brings in my client that ideally you want or repels the one I don't. It's when we're wishy-washy, we're trying to be all things to all people, is we don't get anywhere. So I have to take them and have them figure that out. Then we put in the strategies to attract the ideal customer. Then we put in the execution to find out how that ideal customer thinks. What do they want? How do we get whether it's tech, whether it's staffing, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's a service-based business, it doesn't really matter. It's getting them to go in. Again, it's inside out work to say, this is what we stand for. This is who we are. And this is how we want to serve our marketplace. If I take them too far down the path, again, going back to the golf analogy, if I take them from the first tee to the 10th tee and we skip those other tees in between, we can't get them where they need to go. Then they're like a commodity. And I always try to impart upon my clients, so important to know your niche and get deeper, go deeper in your vertical. Don't try to go wider, go deeper so that you can really stand out. Because in a lot of these deep niches, for example, there's a staffing company I work with. They were a staffing company. Then they were a medical staffing company. Then they were a medical staffing company for schools. Then they were a medical staffing company for schools, placing a very specific person in that school. Once they identified that super sub niche, they blew up. They were the marketplace leader in this little tiny space, and they sold for an incredible multiplier and did an amazing job of owning that niche that all these big box providers wanted that niche, so they were willing to pay a premium for it.
I love that. I think that micro niche really is the key to a business. If you don't know who your ideal client is and then super niche it out like you just talked about, then it's you can't serve everybody. You can't say, oh, my business is for everybody, because it will never work.
Oh, I absolutely. So I look at my coaching practice. Well, I'm a business coach. Well, that sounds like I'm a used car salesman, or I sell insurance, like a dime a dozen. So
Right.
I have to be very clear in what I can deliver for my clients. So if I get a client who says, hey, listen, I want you to come in and put this process into my business. Well, I can do that, but it's not what I do. And like my ideal client has to understand that you have to change yourself to change your business. It's inside out work. If they get that message, then I'm a great fit for them. If they just want to process, there are plenty of process providers. You can go buy, Traction, go get EOS. There's plenty of people that will implement that. Great process. I use it in my business all the time, but that's not what I do. So going back to, if I know better who I am, I know better what I do best. It's like they talk about, and there's a great book I just read by Deb Gabor called Branding is Sex. If I can be the best provider of my services in the eyes of the world, then it will make huge impact on me and my customers and my ideal customer, and it will repel my non-ideal customer, and I'm okay with that.
So that all transcends into when you implement those things and you find that micro niche, then it helps you to hone in your message and increase sales and increase the bottom line. How do you decide? So is that the same process really for figuring out the product? You're finding your niche and then you're fine tuning your product to fit that niche?
Yeah, pretty much. So the client that grew 70% was trying to be all things to all people all the time. And there's a bunch of other competitors. And he figured out, well, I serve these two niches best. And I said, well, let's take a look at those niches. Let's do some data-driven decisions. What is your revenue per niche? It was like 80-20. I'm like, okay, well, then why are we going for two niches? Yeah, but I really like this niche. But nobody cares. Nobody wants to buy it. So like, just do this really, really well. And he found within that thing he did really well, he found a couple of really some sub-micro niches, and boom, he was off to the races. He was able to, his ideal buyer was willing to pay more for his service because they had cash available. They saw the vision, and the vision's aligned for the execution. And it was a service-based business, so they weren't making a product, but their messaging became very clear on who they could attract, and that buyer was not price conscious. They were deliverable conscious. It's like buying a car. We can all, we can buy a Ford, Chrysler, or GM, and that's great. Those are all great products to get you from point A to point B. If you want a status vehicle, well, it's probably not a Ford Fiesta. It's probably more of a BMW or a Mercedes, or they're all cars, but they all say something different, not only to ourselves as the person buying it, but then we think it says something to the outside world. And those are also very important things for us.
Yeah. I love micro niches. One of my clients sold sand for horses. It's called footing. I'd never heard of it, but there are certain kind of horses who do, and they do dressage, which is like ballet in the Olympics, right? Horse ballet. But this special footing, they sell sand, and that's micro niche. It's like, who's going to buy sand for their horse to do ballet? This makes no sense. It's a totally small niche inside the horse community. And they do amazing because they have the best sand, the best footing. It's called footing for the horses to run on. So, I mean, you have to get that micro niche, and your business can be successful.
And they own it, and they're proud of it, and they probably market it. And, it's like a friend of mine wrote a book called The Freak Factor. His name is David Rendell. And he talks about, we all know what we're great at. And it's probably the thing we get criticized for the most as kids. So he goes, I'm a public speaker, and I stand on stage, and I have a lot of opinions. As a kid, I was told to sit down, stop moving, and be quiet. So the things that I got criticized for as a kid, now I make a living doing it. So chances are probably the people in your example probably really love horses, and they probably really love it. And it just becomes part of who they are. So they know the network, they know who to market to, they know the language. They don't have to go out and learn it per se. And so I think there's so much more. You can have a great, highly profitable business in these sub niches.
Yeah. So obviously you're a coach, you made the transition and found success by having a coach. What should somebody look for in a business coach?
Wow, that's a great question, and I want to make sure I answer it from a non-self-serving position.
Yeah.
Because I think
For everybody, right? You got
right. It's because coaches are. It's not a one-size-fits-all occupation. What I found that people find this the most valuable is, have you done it or not? Have you been a CEO or not? And that matters to a lot of people, and it doesn't matter to others, and that's fine. So I think it's important. Have they been there, done that, and survived it? I mean, now we're filming this in, May of 2020. I've gotten more people who've wanted to work with me because I've gotten through the recession and I got through 9/11, and my business was on the Inc. 5000 all the years of the recession. So in their minds, I'm really good at crisis and chaos management because I've been there, done that, where maybe someone who's, 20 years younger, they just haven't had that life experience yet. So in 20 years, their COVID stories will be a great sales tool for them potentially. So again, been there, done that. What do they believe in and what do they stand for? The worst client for me is somebody who says, I want to make the Inc. 5000 6 times like you did. And that's not what I do.
Yeah.
I want to create a great business based upon these core values and go into this sub niche, and I'm willing to do the inside out work required. That's a great fit for me. If someone just wants a process, there's plenty of process people out there. They're called implementers, EOS, scaling up. They offer plenty of those kind of people. There's plenty of people who can help you just put a process in your business. Do they have any financial literacy? So many of the business owner mistakes made by the people running them is because they don't understand finances. I think you got to know that. Do you have any marketing background? Do you have any strong operations background? And if you don't, who do you know? I know accounting. I don't do my clients' accounting. I refer them to a bookkeeping service or to a CPA. Again, what do I know what you do best? So really for me, I think it's, again, have you been there, done that? Do you understand finance? Do you understand sales and operations enough to be consultative on it, a way to great processes? And ultimately I think the biggest thing that most coaches need to be able to express is that they are lifelong learners, because coaching is an ever evolving process. AI is coming in, all those other things. So I still use a coach. I have a coach who's a neuroscientist, because my biggest bottleneck with my clients isn't their business acumen, it's their stinking thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I think when I first talked to you today, when we jumped on this interview, I think you started coaching me right away. And I love that about you. So we are in the COVID-19 right now. So to date this podcast, and we were talking about how we were on Zoom all the time. So you actually were coaching me and helping me with some stuff. So let's talk about that a little bit, about if you're on Zoom all the time, or you're on video conference calls, or you're just constantly, let's talk about some of that stuff we were talking about earlier.
Well, and it was funny because we were talking about it, because we both said we're experiencing it. So
yeah.
I think one of the things I love about coaching is just connecting with people. I like people, and I like when you show, I call it ATV, authentic, transparent, and vulnerable. If we can be that right in the beginning, the conversations are so much more enriched. And there is a thing out there called Zoom fatigue, and that Zoom fatigue creates burnout. But it's not the burnout that, Dick Vermeil had as a football coach back in the 80s. It's a different kind of burnout. And we're talking about kind of those threshold conversations we have with family and friends. We're on these things all day long. We're focused. We're paying attention. We want to respect our audience. Well, if I was doing this interview, 6 months ago from the car, driving around, you've got my attention, but my disconnections are going to happen a lot more. My brain is going to be on again, off again, on again, off again from a visual perspective. Our environments impact Zoom. So I have bright blue eyes. I have a very bright light. It fatigues my eyes. I get tired. And then I have to step, I'm not at the office. I'm at the home office. Then I step out to my family, and they're in a great mood. They want to play. I'm like, oh, crap, what do you want? We just, because of the engagement required by Zoom and the full participation sport that it is, it's actually harder than being on the telephone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the fatigue is real, and whether you're on Skype or whatever kind of FaceTime or whatever it is, but it really is true. So tell us about some self-care stuff, or what you were talking about, like the 4 things you were talking about.
Yeah, so for me, it's about recognizing that, and recognizing when we cross that threshold and having awareness around it. One, recognizing that we're all going through it. It's not just like, what's wrong with me? Because that's what I was thinking. I'm like, why am I behaving this way? What I'm the jerk in the room. It's not them. It's me. What's going on?
Yeah, I blew up at my kids yesterday after being on, and it has been like meeting after meeting where you're just in front of the computer all day long.
Oh, sure.
So I totally blew up. So it totally happened to me, and I was like, what is going on?
Yeah. Well, what happens is, because we're so focused and we're so engaged with our audience. And this is a great conversation, but I had some conversations that are like, it's soul sucking. Like, oh, brother. Well, what happens with those draining conversations is our resources become depleted and the demands still remain high. And if we aren't able to recalibrate, do self-care, and recognize, okay, as soon as we're off this call, I'm going to turn this light off. And I'll start going to a calm meditative state. I'll relax and I'll be able to move on. Well, I wasn't turning the light off all darn day. So it's on for 9 hours and my eyes are fried and I'm heightened. So demands outweigh our resources. Second thing that happens is the environment. Like I talk about my light. The third thing that happens is, and actually I wrote it down here because I want to make sure I get it correctly. We become disconnected from people when we see them face to face. Kids, one more person, small or big, wanting something from me after I've just given it my all. Because Zoom can kind of act like a performance for people. And then at the end of the day the article I'm writing is basically is going to indicate, it's a reduced sense of accomplishment because and then I beat myself up because I'm not there for my family or I'm not there for my next call because my resources are depleted. So now, like, you're drawing attention to it. Now we're going to be aware of it. Now we can choose differently. And now we can realize, I did this yesterday. I had 8 calls. I did 5 on Zoom and 3 on the phone. The 3 on the phone were with friends. I didn't need to see them. They know what I look like. I know I don't need that. So now, okay, I'm down. I'm still engaged. I'm still available. I'm still giving of service to, servant leadership, but it's not, all senses are not engaged 8 hours constant.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Just being aware of it and calling the attention to it.
Yeah. And I like that fatigue. Like you say, you snap at your kids, or even like you're even with a client and you're like, okay, I just can't answer any more questions. Like I've hit my limit.
Right. Yeah. And it's the flip of it though, I think for me is, within the tragedy of COVID, there is a lot of opportunity. And I've been, because of Zoom and because of the improved technology that we didn't have 20 years ago, I've coached people in Brazil, South Africa, all across Canada and the United States, down in Mexico. I literally have talked to people from India, China, from around the globe who I never would have met if it wasn't for putting the messages out on social media to entrepreneurial groups. Hey, I'm available for 30 minutes. I'm happy to talk to you. I don't know what you're going through, but I can share with you how I got through the recession. I had 4 pillars. What's your mindset? What's your cash position? What's your messaging to your employees? And what are the 5 positive things you're going to do every day when you're sitting at home and you're going crazy? That was kind of the whole, and I had like 40 calls with people who I never would have met that I couldn't go around the globe and see, except for when I get to my computer. And now I can see them all. I've created some great friendships. I'm still checking in on most of these people, and they're feeling cared for. And I think so much as entrepreneurship is loneliness. We isolate. An entrepreneur alone, really, I believe, is an entrepreneur at risk. So when I'm seen and I'm seeing others and I'm heard and I'm in taking others, it takes away a lot of the distancing.
Yeah. Great information.
That. Yeah. I think the connection around the world is awesome. I mean, COVID-19 has, a lot of people are focusing on the negative, but think of all the positive things that it's doing for us. And like you said, connecting us around the world and forcing people to use the technology that's available to us. Because a lot of times, people who they just keep it's the mindset in their head, I'm not technical, or the mindset in their head, I can't work a computer, but it's forcing them to say, okay, I can click a button, I can figure out Zoom, I can figure out Skype or FaceTime or whatever it is, and get it and connect with the people you want to connect with.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I've got a friend of mine in Canada. He has Sunday family dinner now. His family sits there and they bring in 2 other laptops, and his brother's family and his parents join in, and they all eat dinner together. It's so safe. And he's using technology to do that. And I thought it was, he did a whole blog series on it and a video on it. And it was just so heartwarming that, especially for our seniors, I mean, they're the most vulnerable right now. And he's able to connect with his parents, and he feels like he's giving of himself. His family's still able to connect. Now they're playing board games I'm like, that's a lot of, so you can take anything to an extreme, but it's so refreshing that we can use technology to maintain a visual connectivity. We could have done that 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. It's all good. Well, thanks for coming on our show today, Todd. Tell us where everyone can reach you.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate having it with you guys. And people can reach me at todd@extraordinaryadvisors.com. If they mention that they heard me on your show, I'm happy to give them 30 minutes of my time, just like I was done for entrepreneurs around the world. I'm not going to put you in a funneling system. I'm not going to capture your information. It's more my chance to really live my why. I was lucky enough a dozen years ago to spend time with Simon Sinek, and it took me 2 years to figure out 2 words, and my 2 words are improve lives. So don't feel like, oh, I don't want to bother him, or he's not going to be able to help me. Reach out. I'm happy to book a call with you to be of service to you, because someday you could pay what we talk about forward to somebody down the line.
I love that. And is there just go to the same website to go and find you?
Yep. Go to extraordinaryadvisors.com. The video of my client who had the testimonial video where his revenue grew 70%, his profits grew 500%. That's all there. So yeah, it's, and it's going back to the Content Inc. and the things that I've been doing with all the books I've been able to enter into my life during this tough time. I'm redoing my website to change my messaging and my branding to double down on what I do best. And it's going to be, I think there's going to be a lot of really new businesses that are going to come out of this tough time. And I think it's going to be, while it's going to be struggling and tragic for some folks, and that's very unfortunate, because this change has been thrust down upon us, where like my 06 change came, I had to change me to get it fixed. The change being thrust down is going to force us, like you talked about, to innovate and to iterate. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to see what the next 5 years are going to look like.
Yeah. Sounds like you need to write a book too. You've got all these other books you've recommended. We need to have your book.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Thank you for mentioning that. My next book is going to be out in September.
Oh, sweet.
Well,
yeah. It's going to be on an entrepreneurial journey and the mindset and all out of the stuff we talked about today.
That's great. We'll look forward to seeing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, let us know. We'll put it out. Well, thanks for joining us for another great podcast. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, and we will see you next time.
Bye. Have a great day.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.